In the vast darkness of space, humanity seemed small and unimportant. Other civilizations in the galaxy often looked down on humans. They were used to seeing enormous fleets, advanced starships, and alien empires that had lasted for thousands of years. Humans, in comparison, had barely begun to explore their own solar system. Their technology seemed crude, their weapons weak, and their colonies fragile. Many alien leaders laughed at the idea that humans could ever pose a real threat. They were slow, emotional, and messy. They did not understand that humans had something that could not be measured in metal or energy-determination on a secret orbital station far from any planet. Humans were quietly working on something that no one expected. This station was not flashy, and it did not have fleets of defense ships circling it. It was simple, functional, and hidden among a field of asteroids. Inside, teams of engineers, scientists, and technicians moved through narrow corridors, checking consoles, testing systems, and arguing over tiny details that could decide success or failure. Every person there knew the stakes were high. The survival of humanity, or at least its recognition in the galaxy, depended on their work. They were building the first railgun, capable of reaching beyond Earth's orbit. It was not like ordinary weapons, which fired bullets or missiles. This railgun used electricity and magnets to accelerate a projectile to speeds that could pierce almost anything. No alien fleet had ever faced a weapon like it. To the humans, it was not just a machine. It was proof that they could rise above the galaxy's expectations. For decades, they had watched from the sidelines while empires expanded, while leaders schemed, and while civilizations underestimated them. Now, finally, humans were preparing to show the galaxy what they were capable of. The work was not easy. Every part of the railgun had to be perfect. One small mistake could destroy the whole station or ruin months of effort. Engineers worked late into the human night, often skipping sleep, eating minimal meals, and focusing only on the task in front of them. Some argued, some got frustrated, but deep down, everyone knew they were part of something larger than themselves. They were not doing this for fame or power. They were doing it to prove that humans could survive, that they could be respected, and that no one could ignore them any longer. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering. It was not huge, but it was efficient. Power systems hummed. With controlled energy, cooling systems prevented overheating, and sensors scanned the empty space around them constantly. There were labs, workshops, living quarters, and command centers, all connected by narrow corridors. It was cramped, noisy, and sometimes uncomfortable, but every human there felt proud to be a part of it. Each day, they moved closer to the moment. That could change the galaxy forever. Outside the station, the galaxy carried on as if humans did not exist. Alien fleets patrolled their borders. Trade ships moved between planets, and councils met to discuss politics and wars. They had no idea that, hidden among the stars, humans were quietly building something that could change everything. They thought humans were weak, slow, and inexperienced. They did not know that humans could learn quickly, adapt, and think in ways that no machine or algorithm could predict. Inside the station, there was a mix of nervous energy and quiet focus. Engineers adjusted power circuits, scientists monitored simulations, and the project leaders made careful calculations. They knew that the first test of the railgun would not only determine the success of their project, but also decide how the galaxy would perceive humans. They were aware that if they failed, it could set humanity back decades. But they also knew that if they succeeded, the consequences would be far greater than any celebration. They would have a tool that no alien empire could ignore: the railgun. Itself was enormous, stretching across a long testing bay. It was sleek and polished, with energy coils running along its length. Every wire, every magnet, Every piece of metal had been designed for precision. It did not have unnecessary parts or decorations. Humans valued function over form, especially when the goal was survival and effectiveness. When they looked at it, they did not see a weapon. They saw a possibility. They saw the chance to stand tall among the stars. The day of the first test was tense. Humans do not always act bravely, but they act with determination. The team gathered in the control room, eyes fixed on monitors and gauges. Every sensor, every reading, every number mattered. The lead engineer gave a final check. Power levels stable. Cooling systems nominal. Magnetic rails aligned. Projectile loaded. "We are ready," he said, his voice calm but full of weight. The humans activated the railgun. Electricity surged, coils glowed, and energy built up along the rails. The air seemed to vibrate with power. Everyone held their breath. There was no dramatic countdown. There was only focus, only the careful attention to every detail. Humans are not perfect, but they are persistent. They had worked for years for this moment, and they would not let fear stop them. Then, with a sudden, sharp roar, the railgun fired. The projectile shot down the barrel at unimaginable speed. The sensors recorded numbers that no human had thought possible. The team cheered quietly at first, then more openly as the readings confirmed the success. They had done it. The first human railgun had fired, and it had worked perfectly. The station shook slightly from the release of energy, but no one cared. They had achieved what no one thought humans could do. As the team celebrated, a quiet thought lingered in the minds of many. The galaxy would never be the same. Alien civilizations would soon learn of their success, and they would be forced to take humanity seriously. Humans had always been underestimated, but now they had a weapon that demanded attention. They had proof that determination, ingenuity, and persistence could overcome decades of neglect and prejudice. In the days that followed, humans continued to test and refine the railgun. They studied every shot, measured every variable, and ensured that their work was reliable. There were setbacks, as always, but nothing could stop their momentum. Each success built confidence. Each improvement brought them closer to the day when the galaxy would finally have to look at humanity differently. Meanwhile, alien civilizations continued their business, unaware that a small human team was quietly rewriting the rules of power. They could not imagine that a single weapon, fired by determination and human ingenuity, could challenge centuries of galactic dominance. They could not see the quiet preparation, the long nights, the arguments, the mistakes, and the corrections that had brought humanity to this moment. The humans on the station were not heroes in the traditional sense. They did not wear medals or command armies. They were ordinary people doing extraordinary work. Engineers who had once worked in small labs on Earth, scientists who had studied physics for decades, technicians who had spent their lives understanding. Machines, they were the ones holding the fate of humanity in their hands. And they did not seek glory. They sought survival, respect, and the right to be acknowledged as equals in a galaxy that had long ignored them. By the end of the first week after the test, the project leaders gathered to review the results. Every measurement had been perfect. Every system had performed beyond expectations. They knew the railgun was ready for the next phase, and they also knew that the galaxy's rulers would soon have to respond. Humans had changed. They had demonstrated that even with limited resources, intelligence and determination could produce power that no empire could ignore. And so, in the quiet of space, among rocks and stars, humanity had taken its first true step toward recognition. The first railgun had fired, and with it, a new chapter had begun. The galaxy might not yet know it, but humans had begun to claim their place among the stars, not as weaklings to be laughed at, but as a force to be respected, feared, and perhaps one day reckoned with. The moment the railgun fired for the first time, the humans on the station felt a mixture of excitement and disbelief. They had prepared for years, studied every detail, run countless simulations, but seeing the projectile soar at incredible speed made it all feel real in a way that no calculations could capture. The room was filled with a quiet energy, like the hum of a giant engine. People looked at each other, eyes wide, some unable to speak, others grinning with the kind of joy that only comes after achieving something that seemed impossible. They spent hours analyzing the data from the first shot. Every reading, every trace of energy, and every small variable was carefully examined. The scientists wanted to understand exactly how the railgun had performed and what they could improve. Even though the first test was a success, they knew this was only the beginning. The railgun was a tool, yes, but it was also a statement. It was proof that humans could create power the galaxy had never expected, and they had to be prepared for the consequences. As they worked, one thought kept returning in everyone's mind. The galaxy would soon learn of this. Humans had tried to stay hidden, working quietly in their secret station. But in the universe, nothing stays secret forever. Alien civilizations were always observing, always scanning, always curious. And when they found out about the railgun, they would not be happy. Many of the humans felt a mix of excitement and worry. They knew that what they had built could change everything, but they also knew that it could bring danger. The engineers started running the second test the next day. This time, they wanted to push the railgun to its limits. They increased the energy levels slightly and adjusted the magnetic acceleration system. As the team prepared, the tension in the room was almost tangible. Every person knew that even a small miscalculation could damage the railgun or the station itself. They double-checked every system, every circuit, and every gauge. When the second shot was fired, the projectile moved even faster than before. The monitors lit up with numbers and graphs, showing energy output and speed in real time. For the humans watching, it was almost surreal. They had created something that could move faster than any fleet ship in the galaxy, something that could strike with unimaginable force. The railgun was not just a weapon. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, persistence, and courage. After the successful second test, the team allowed themselves a moment of quiet celebration. They shared small smiles, fist bumps, and short words of encouragement. But even in that moment, the gravity of what they had achieved was clear. They were no longer just a small civilization trying to survive in a vast galaxy. They were a civilization capable of altering the balance of power. And for the first time, they realized that the galaxy might soon have to take them seriously. The station continued its work quietly. But beyond their isolation, events were beginning to unfold. Alien civilizations had started noticing anomalies. Near human space, observers reported unusual energy readings, sudden bursts of electromagnetic activity, and strange projectiles moving at impossible speeds. These anomalies were subtle, but the more advanced civilizations noticed them quickly. The first whispers reached council chambers across the galaxy. Humans were doing something new. The reactions among alien leaders were a mix of skepticism and worry. Some dismissed the reports, saying humans were exaggerating or that their sensors were malfunctioning. Others were uneasy, sensing a shift they could not yet explain. There were meetings and debates, long arguments about whether humans were becoming a threat or whether it was a misunderstanding. No one had seen humans capable of creating such technology before. Back on the station, the humans were unaware of the immediate stir they were causing. They focused on refinement, testing different types of projectiles, measuring trajectories, and improving accuracy. Every test brought more confidence. Every improvement brought a sense of achievement. They were learning not only about the railgun, but also about themselves, what humans could do when they worked together, pushed boundaries, and refused to give up, The station's engineers also faced small crises. Some systems overheated, some projectiles were imperfect, and sometimes the railgun misfired. But each failure was met with determination rather than discouragement. Humans were used to failure and knew it was part of progress. They analyzed, adjusted, and tried again. The repeated effort created a rhythm, a kind of human resilience that no alien technology could replicate. In the midst of all this, a small group began discussing the potential of the railgun in real conflict. They imagined scenarios where humans might be forced to defend themselves against larger, more powerful civilizations. It was not an abstract exercise. It was a real possibility. The galaxy was unpredictable, and humans had learned the hard way that survival sometimes depended on being prepared. The railgun was their answer, a tool that could protect them and assert their presence in a universe that had often ignored them. As days passed, the railgun tests became more advanced. The humans calculated ranges, speeds, and energy output with incredible precision. They experimented with different power sources, different projectile shapes, and different firing sequences. The technology grew stronger, more reliable, and more impressive with each trial. The humans working there began to feel a quiet pride, not in dominating others, but in achieving something that no one had thought possible for their species. Human spirit, driven by curiosity and resilience, became visible in every detail of the project. They worked together, solving problems that seemed insurmountable. A simple mistake in calculations could have caused disaster, but they relied on teamwork and persistence to succeed. They were ordinary people, yet their actions were extraordinary. Every human on that station understood that they were creating a legacy, a mark that would be remembered even if no one outside their station yet knew it. Meanwhile, alien intelligence systems slowly began tracking the railgun's tests. Observers reported that a human civilization was creating a weapon with unprecedented speed and power. Some alien leaders became alarmed. They realized that humans might not just be surviving, they could soon challenge established galactic powers. Rumors spread through star systems, growing with every new report. The galaxy had underestimated humans for centuries, and now those underestimations were beginning to crumble. The humans themselves remained focused on the work, unaware of the panic they were beginning to stir. They did not seek recognition or attention. They sought mastery and readiness. They knew that the first human railgun was not just a demonstration of power, it was the first step in a long journey. They were learning, testing, and preparing for the day when they might need to use their creation to protect themselves. It was also a time of personal reflection for many on the station. They thought about Earth, about the people who had never believed in humanity's potential, and about the generations who had worked tirelessly for survival and progress. Each human on that station felt a deep connection to their species, a desire to prove that determination, creativity, and courage could overcome seemingly impossible odds. They were not just building a weapon. They were building hope, resilience, and a future. By the end of the second week of testing, the railgun had become more than a machine. It was a symbol. It represented human persistence, ingenuity, and the refusal to be dismissed. The humans on the station knew that the galaxy would eventually have to take notice. The railgun was ready for larger trials, perhaps even real demonstrations outside the station. But even in preparation, the humans remained careful, disciplined, and meticulous. They understood that power without control could be dangerous. The sense of anticipation grew. Every human on the station could feel it, the moment when their work would no longer be a secret, the moment when the galaxy would begin to see humans differently. It was not fear, and it was not arrogance. It was the quiet understanding that they were on the edge of something significant, something that could change how humans were viewed forever. And so, life on the station continued in a mixture of focus, anticipation, and cautious celebration. The railgun had fired again and again, proving itself with every shot. The humans working on it had grown more confident, more skilled, and more determined. They were ready for the next step, the day when the galaxy would learn that humans were no longer small, weak, or insignificant. The quiet preparation of the humans on that station, their endless nights, tireless work, and careful calculations, had set the stage for something no one outside had expected. The first human railgun had fired, and it had already begun to shape the future. The galaxy's rulers might not have realized it yet, but the balance of power was beginning to shift, and humans were at the center of it. After the second week of successful tests, the humans on the station began to notice subtle changes in how the galaxy seemed to be watching them. It started slowly, almost imperceptibly. Sensors picked up distant scans from unknown ships. Communications. Channels that had been quiet suddenly became busier. Signals bounced across space, and the humans realized that their secret might no longer be a secret dot at first. They did not panic. The humans were careful, disciplined, and methodical. They understood that being discovered could bring risks, but it could also prove their work's value. The railgun had fired perfectly, multiple times, and the humans had learned from every test. They had prepared not just to build the weapon, but to survive in a galaxy that might react with fear or aggression. Meanwhile, in the distant council chambers of various alien civilizations, reports of strange phenomena began to appear. Observers described objects moving faster than any known ship, flashes of energy in the darkness of space, and signals that suggested advanced technology beyond anything previously seen from humans. Some leaders laughed, dismissing the reports as sensor errors or exaggerations. Others, however, felt a creeping unease. For centuries, humans had been considered insignificant, but these reports suggested that they were more capable than anyone had imagined. The alien councils began to argue. Some said humans were too weak to ever pose a threat. Others argued that even a small human civilization could upset the delicate balance of power. Many could not imagine that humans were capable of creating something as powerful as a railgun. They had underestimated humanity for centuries, and now doubt was beginning to creep in. Back on the station, the humans continued their work, largely unaware of the growing attention. Their days were filled with calculations, simulations, and careful adjustments. They ran tests not only to improve power and speed, but also to increase accuracy and reliability. Each success built confidence, while each minor failure taught lessons that could not be learned from theory alone. The humans worked tirelessly because they understood that mastery came not from luck, but from repeated effort and careful attention to detail. They were ordinary people, yet their actions were extraordinary. Engineers who had once worked in small labs on Earth now handled energy levels and magnetic forces that could destroy entire ships. Scientists who had studied physics for decades now applied their knowledge to a machine that moved faster than light-escaping ships could easily track. Technicians carefully monitored systems that pulsed with enormous power. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. They were humanity in its finest form, determined, resourceful, and unafraid of challenges. The humans also spent time thinking about the ethical implications of their work. They were not building the railgun to dominate others. They were building it to survive and to ensure that humanity would no longer be ignored. Discussions often filled the corridors. How to use power responsibly, how to prepare without provoking unnecessary conflict, and how to maintain control over a weapon of such magnitude. Their careful deliberation made them wise, not reckless, even as they explored possibilities that no one else had dared to attempt. As the days passed, more alien civilizations began to take notice. Reconnaissance ships approached the edges of human space, scanning and observing from a distance. Reports were sent back to distant worlds, describing a civilization that had been underestimated yet had quietly mastered technology that could threaten established powers. Alarm began to spread among the galaxy's rulers. They realized that the humans had not only built something new, but had done so without anyone noticing until it was almost too late that alien emissaries started to discuss what should be done. Some advocated diplomacy, arguing that humans could be guided and controlled. Others believed that humans had to be stopped immediately before their technology advanced further. The debate became heated because the humans had achieved something no one had expected, and no one knew how to respond. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's rulers were unsure, hesitant, and fearful. On the station, the humans continued refining their railgun. They conducted longer-range tests, measured energy dissipation across vast distances, and experimented with different projectile types. Every success brought more confidence. Every challenge strengthened their determination. Humans were learning not only how to master technology, but also how to trust each other in moments of pressure. The railgun was no longer just a machine. It was a mirror of their perseverance and ingenuity. They also began running coordinated drills, simulating scenarios in which alien fleets might appear near their space. They tested the railgun's precision, timing, and reliability under pressure. Each test taught them more about strategy, timing, and the potential of their weapon. The humans were not seeking conflict, but they understood that preparation was essential. In a universe that did not wait for anyone, readiness could be the difference between survival and extinction. Some of the humans took a quiet pride in the growing attention from the galaxy. They were not proud in an arrogant way. They did not seek to dominate or humiliate. Instead, they felt a deep satisfaction that years of hard work, sleepless nights, and tireless effort were finally proving something important. Humans could create, achieve, and excel in ways that others had refused to believe. They had turned determination and ingenuity into a force that could not be ignored. At the same time, the humans noticed subtle shifts in their own thinking. They began to see themselves differently, not as small and insignificant, but as capable and resilient. The challenges they had overcome, the failures they had endured, and the successes they had achieved had changed them. They were still humans, vulnerable, emotional, and imperfect, but they were also a species that could create machines and systems far beyond what anyone had expected. As the alien civilizations debated how to respond, humans on the station prepared for the next phase. They conducted longer and more complex tests, measuring every variable with precision. The railgun's projectile traveled faster, farther, and more accurately with each trial. The humans documented everything, refining systems and adjusting for efficiency. Every person on the station understood that this work was not just about technology. It was about survival, strategy, and the assertion of human presence in a galaxy that had often ignored them. The tension in the station grew as well. Every day, the humans wondered if their secret had already been discovered. Sensors picked up unidentified readings, and every anomaly sparked careful investigation. Humans were naturally cautious and curious. They examined every detail, analyzing patterns, testing hypotheses, and learning from every observation. Their approach was meticulous, almost obsessive, but it was necessary. In a universe filled with unknowns, caution could mean survival. Even as they worked, humans on the station maintained a sense of camaraderie. Long hours, shared challenges, and a common purpose created strong bonds. They laughed quietly in the corridors, shared small celebrations after successful tests, and supported each other when systems failed or setbacks occurred. These moments of humanity, of connection, reminded everyone why they were doing this work, not for glory, but to protect and advance the species as a whole. The humans also began imagining the possible reactions from the galaxy's rulers. They did not fear confrontation, but they understood the implications of being discovered. Alien civilizations had more experience, more resources, and more powerful fleets. Yet humans had something else: creativity, determination, and adaptability. They realized that the first reaction of the galaxy would be surprise and underestimation, and they were ready to use that moment to their advantage. As weeks turned into months, the railgun became a symbol of human potential. Not only was it a weapon, but it was a demonstration that humans could take risks, learn from failure, and achieve what others thought impossible. The humans felt pride not in dominating the galaxy, but in proving that their species could innovate, endure, and rise above expectations. Each test, each calculation, and each successful firing reinforced the quiet truth: humans were no longer insignificant. Finally, one evening, as the humans reviewed another successful series of tests, the first clear sign of external attention appeared. A small alien observation drone was detected near the edge of human space. It did not approach aggressively, but its presence was undeniable. Humans gathered in the control room, watching the readings with careful attention. They knew this was the beginning of the galaxy taking notice. It was a moment of tension, curiosity, and silent excitement. The humans understood that this was only the start. The galaxy would soon respond in one way or another. Some civilizations might try diplomacy, others might react with aggression. The humans did not yet know what would happen, but they were ready. They had tested, refined, and prepared. Their railgun worked, their strategy was growing, and their confidence in themselves and each other was stronger than ever. In that quiet moment, the humans felt a sense of accomplishment and purpose. They had proven that they were capable of building something extraordinary, something that could shift the balance of power. They were still vulnerable, still ordinary in many ways, but they had created a force that demanded attention. The galaxy might not yet understand it, but humanity had begun to. The moment had finally arrived. The humans on the station had prepared for months, running endless simulations, refining calculations, and running test after test of the railgun. They knew that sooner or later the galaxy would notice what they had created. That day had come in the form of a fleet. Not a small scout ship or a probe, but an entire fleet approaching the outskirts of human space. Sensors lit up, alarms sounded softly, and the humans gathered in the control room. Their faces a mixture of determination and quiet tension. The alien fleet did not hide its presence. Thousands of ships, sleek and heavily armed, advanced toward the station. Their lights reflected off distant asteroids, a cold and intimidating spectacle. For centuries, humans had studied alien fleets in theory and simulation, but this was the first time they faced one in reality. There was no time to panic. The humans on the station had a single advantage: their preparation and their RAILGUN. The command team quickly reviewed all data. They knew the fleet could overwhelm the station in minutes if they acted recklessly. The railgun, while powerful, required careful aiming, precise timing, and maximum energy. Every human in the room felt the pressure. This was no longer a simulation. This was real. Lives, the future of humanity, and the first impression of humans in the galaxy all depended on their actions. The fleet commander on the alien side, confident in centuries of experience, assumed that humans would surrender or retreat. In the alien mind, humans had always been weak, unpredictable, and emotional. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for focus, strategy, and ingenuity. That misjudgment would soon cost them more than they expected. The humans activated the railgun. Electricity surged through the magnetic rails. Energy levels built to maximum, and every system hummed in perfect synchrony. The team had practiced this moment endlessly, and every human on the station knew their role. Some monitored energy output, others adjusted targeting coordinates, while a few kept watch on external sensors, ensuring nothing unexpected happened. Then, With a roar and a flash of light, the railgun fired. The projectile, a dense, sleek metal slug, shot out at incredible speed, faster than any conventional missile or fleet weapon could track. Monitors displayed the projectile's trajectory in real time, showing it closing in on the alien fleet. The humans watched, silent but focused, as the first target, a heavily armored ship, disintegrated in a brilliant explosion. The reaction was immediate. The alien fleet did not expect such precision, such destructive power, or such speed. For a moment there was disbelief. How could humans, seemingly primitive, insignificant humans, possess such a weapon? Alarms rang across alien ships. Officers shouted orders, recalculated strategies, and attempted evasive maneuvers, but the railgun's projectile was fast, accurate, and unstoppable. Humans on the station allowed themselves a brief glance at each other, a silent acknowledgement of their achievement. They were not celebrating recklessly. They knew the battle had only begun, but they could feel the weight of what they had accomplished. The railgun had proven itself. It was no longer a machine in a test bay. It was a decisive tool in the defense of humanity. The alien fleet reacted aggressively. Ships opened fire, energy beams and missiles streaking across the void. The humans had anticipated this and had reinforced shields and energy-dampening systems. The railgun's projectiles continued to strike with incredible accuracy, disabling engines, destroying weapons arrays, and scattering ships in small groups. Each shot was calculated, efficient, and devastating. Humans had learned from months of preparation that every projectile had to count. Waste or miscalculation could cost lives. From the outside, the battle appeared almost like a dance. The alien fleet moved aggressively, attempting to surround the station, while humans stayed calm, precise, and methodical. They relied not on speed or numbers, but on strategy, calculation, and ingenuity. Each time a projectile hit, the humans adjusted targeting for the next one. They used observation, knowledge of enemy tactics, and quick thinking to stay ahead. The aliens began to realize they had underestimated humans. What they thought would be an easy show of force became a desperate struggle. Thousands of years of galactic dominance had taught them arrogance, but humans had learned persistence, adaptability, and precision. They had no fear of failure because they had trained, calculated, and tested every scenario. The railgun was more than technology. It was the embodiment of human determination. On the station, engineers monitored the railgun continuously. The energy consumption, the wear on the rails, and the projectile paths were all recorded and analyzed. Humans worked in harmony, communicating efficiently, correcting errors, and maintaining focus under intense pressure. This was not just a battle of weapons. It was a battle of will, intelligence, and teamwork. The human's ability to coordinate under pressure proved to be as powerful as the railgun itself. As the alien fleet suffered losses, panic began to ripple through their ranks. Officers shouted, orders conflicted, and some ships began to retreat. The humans, however, did not pursue recklessly. They maintained discipline, ensuring that every action was precise. Their goal was clear: to defend themselves and demonstrate that humanity could not be ignored, not to annihilate unnecessarily. Every shot was purposeful, calculated, and controlled. The battle lasted hours, but in that time, the humans had achieved what no one thought possible. They had shown the galaxy that humans were capable of defending themselves, of mastering technology far beyond expectations, and of acting with precision under pressure. The alien fleet, once confident and arrogant, had been forced to retreat, humiliated and bewildered. The humans on the station had survived, and they had proven their worth. After the battle, the atmosphere on the station was tense but relieved. Humans checked every system, repaired minor damage, and ensured that everything was operational. There was no celebration yet. The work was not done. The railgun had been tested in combat, but humans knew this was only the beginning. They needed to prepare for the reactions that would follow. Alien civilizations would respond. They would plan, strategize, and try to regain control. Humans had to be ready. At the same time, there was a sense of quiet pride. Humans had faced what seemed impossible, and they had succeeded. The railgun had fired not just in tests, but in actual defense, demonstrating its power and humanity's resolve. For centuries, humans had been dismissed, ignored, and underestimated. Now, for the first time, they had commanded attention, respect, and perhaps even fear. Human engineers and scientists gathered to discuss lessons learned. They analyzed every shot, every movement of the alien fleet, and every system performance. They knew that the next encounter could be more challenging. Alien civilizations would not underestimate humans again, and humans needed to anticipate new strategies and technologies. The railgun was a breakthrough, but the humans behind it understood that knowledge, preparation, and adaptation were just as important as firepower. In quiet moments, humans on the station reflected on what had just occurred. They thought about Earth, the people who had doubted them, and the generations who had worked tirelessly to advance human technology. They thought about their own sacrifices, long nights, missed celebrations, and endless work. And they realized that their efforts had not been in vain. Humanity had made its mark. Humans were no longer the species to be ignored or underestimated. The alien civilizations, meanwhile, began communicating more seriously about the humans. Council meetings, once filled with laughter at human incompetence, now carried tension and concern. Reports detailed the speed, precision, and effectiveness of the railgun. Strategies were debated, alliances considered, and preparations made. The galaxy had witnessed the first clear proof that humans were a force to be reckoned with. Back on the station, humans continued their work. The railgun needed maintenance, testing, and further refinement. They planned for longer-range tests, heavier projectiles, and contingency strategies. Every human knew that the battle had changed their place in the galaxy forever. They had survived, defended themselves, and demonstrated the unique combination of intelligence, ingenuity, and persistence that made humanity special. The first confrontation had also taught humans another lesson. Fear, arrogance, and underestimation could be more dangerous than raw power. Alien civilizations had expected an easy victory and paid the price for misjudging humans. This understanding shaped human strategy moving forward. They would continue to innovate, to test, and to prepare, always mindful of the potential threats and challenges ahead. And so, as the alien fleet disappeared into the distance, the humans on the station returned to their work with renewed focus. They had proven their capabilities, but they also understood that survival in the galaxy required continuous effort, vigilance, and adaptability. The railgun had fired in battle for the first time, and it had worked flawlessly. But humans knew that technology alone was not enough. Intelligence, teamwork, and determination were equally vital. In those quiet hours, the humans reflected on the significance of their achievement. They had faced a fleet far larger and more experienced than themselves. They had used skill, strategy, and preparation to defend humanity. The railgun had shown its power, but the humans behind it had shown something even more important: the human spear. After the first confrontation, the galaxy began to react in ways no human had fully expected. Reports of the railgun's power spread quickly through communications networks, intercepted signals, and sensors. The alien civilizations that had long dismissed humans were now unsettled. They had watched as a single station, armed with one weapon, had destroyed a fleet that would have been unstoppable under ordinary circumstances. News traveled fast, and the reactions ranged from disbelief to panic. In council chambers across The galaxy, leaders argued intensely. Some refused to accept what had happened. Humans are weak, one insisted. They cannot possibly be a threat. Perhaps these reports are exaggerated, but the evidence was undeniable. Observers had recorded energy readings, projectile speeds, and damage reports. The humans had proven their ability to act precisely, quickly, and with devastating efficiency. The council debates became more chaotic as the reality sank in. Humans were no longer the insignificant species they had once assumed. The humans on the station, meanwhile, focused on preparation. They had anticipated that their actions would cause attention, but the speed and scale of the reaction surprised even them. Alien fleets began repositioning. New patrols appeared near human territory, and long-distance communications from multiple civilizations started increasing. The humans realized that diplomacy, threats, or confrontation would all eventually arrive, and they needed to be ready. The railgun had become both a symbol and a tool. To humans, it represented ingenuity, effort, and survival. To the rest of the galaxy, it was a warning that underestimated humans could be dangerous. Engineers continued refining it. Scientists ran simulations for increasingly complex scenarios, and the command team developed strategies for defense and deterrence. Every human on the station understood that they were now representatives of their species in the eyes of the galaxy. In the midst of all this, the humans reflected on the arrogance of the alien empires. For centuries, these civilizations had assumed superiority. They had built massive fleets, constructed vast stations, and claimed dominance over large sectors of space. They had dismissed humanity as weak, unskilled, and unable to compete. Yet, the railgun had shattered that illusion. One weapon, operated by determined humans, had upset centuries of confidence and pride. The alien civilizations, shocked and embarrassed, began to reconsider their approach. Many realized that alliances would be necessary, as no single empire could challenge the humans alone. Others debated preemptive strikes, fearing that further delay would allow humans to develop even more advanced technology. The council chambers were filled with tension, mistrust, and hurried strategy sessions. Humans had become a catalyst, forcing the galaxy's rulers to rethink everything. Back on the station, the humans prepared for the possibility of another confrontation. They ran drills, improved defensive systems, and expanded railgun testing to longer ranges. They tested different types of projectiles, calculated energy consumption for sustained firing, and ran simulations of fleet engagements. Every successful trial increased confidence, while every small setback became a lesson in adaptation. Humans were learning not just how to survive, but how to prepare for a universe that had underestimated them for too long. The humans also began to consider diplomacy in parallel with defense. They understood that open conflict with multiple civilizations would be catastrophic. Instead, they prepared messages, strategic communications, and demonstrations of power that could persuade without requiring immediate combat. The railgun, they realized, could serve as both protection and a symbol of negotiation. Humans had learned that strength combined with careful strategy could influence even the most arrogant civilizations. Alien fleets began cautious patrols near human territory. They monitored energy signatures, movement patterns, and defensive capabilities. Their initial confidence had been shattered, replaced by hesitation and fear. Humans had proven that they were precise, disciplined, and capable of striking with devastating power. Even the most powerful fleets in the galaxy now recognized the danger of underestimating humans. The humans' confidence grew, but they did not become reckless. Every system was monitored, every drill was repeated, and every calculation was checked multiple times. They knew that one mistake could be catastrophic. Humans were aware of the stakes, not just for themselves, but for the species as a whole. Their preparation and careful attention were as important as the railgun itself. The weapon was powerful, but human ingenuity, adaptability, and coordination were what truly made it a threat. Across the galaxy, the perception of humans began to change. No longer dismissed as weak, they were now considered dangerous, intelligent, and capable. Observers sent detailed reports describing the railgun's destructive power, the humans' strategic precision, and the resilience of their station. Alien leaders who had once mocked humans now faced uncertainty. They had not expected such a small species to develop technology that could challenge entire fleets and disrupt the balance of power within human ranks. There was pride, but also a sober understanding of responsibility. The railgun was a tool, yes, but it was also a symbol of humanity's potential. They had the chance to reshape their place in the galaxy, to ensure survival and recognition, but they also had to act wisely. Every decision carried weight. Every action had consequences. Humans were learning that power without foresight could be as dangerous as the fleets they faced. Meanwhile, the humans began to expand their strategic thinking. They analyzed potential threats, studied the movement of alien fleets, and considered how to maximize the railgun's advantage. They simulated attacks and defenses, practiced contingency plans, and improved communication protocols. Humans understood that the railgun was only one part of a larger equation. Their ability to plan, adapt, and respond under pressure was equally important. The first weeks after the initial confrontation were a mix of preparation, analysis, and careful observation. The humans observed alien movements, interpreted signals, and anticipated strategies. They realized that the galaxy would not sit quietly. Alien civilizations would attempt to regain control, reassert dominance, or test humans further. But humans were ready. They had trained, adapted, and built a system that could respond quickly and decisively at the same time. Humans reflected on the lessons learned from the first engagement. The railgun had demonstrated power, but humans had also realized the importance of precision, timing, and coordination. They understood that being underestimated had given them an advantage, and they needed to maintain that advantage through careful planning. Humans were learning not just to survive, but to thrive in a universe that had long ignored them. The alien rulers, meanwhile, struggled to maintain authority. Many fleets hesitated to act, unsure of what humans were capable of next. Alliances formed and dissolved quickly as fear and uncertainty spread. The confidence of centuries of dominance began to crumble. Humans, through preparation, intelligence, and precise action, had disrupted established hierarchies and forced the galaxy to take notice. On the station, humans continued to innovate. They improved energy distribution, optimized the railguns, performance, and developed strategies for multiple scenarios. They ran drills to anticipate fleet maneuvers, practiced emergency protocols, and ensured that every system was ready for action. Humans knew that the future depended not only on the railgun's power, but also on their ability to act decisively and intelligently. The railgun became more than a weapon. It became a statement of human capability. Alien civilizations now approached. Every decision about humans with caution. They could no longer ignore the species they had once considered insignificant. The railgun had proven that humans could combine ingenuity, perseverance, and strategy to challenge the galaxy's old power structures. Humans also began to consider long-term implications. They thought about diplomacy, alliances, and the possibility of future conflict. They realized that the railgun could serve as a deterrent, a tool of negotiation, and a symbol of strength. By demonstrating capability and restraint, humans could influence the galaxy without unnecessary bloodshed. Every action had to be measured, thoughtful, and deliberate. As months passed, the galaxy slowly adjusted to the presence of humans as a serious power. Alien civilizations studied their tactics, tried to anticipate their actions, and attempted to predict the capabilities of their technology. Humans, meanwhile, continued to refine, test, and improve. They remained vigilant, disciplined, and ready. Every success reinforced confidence, and every challenge became a lesson in adaptation that the balance of power in the galaxy had begun to shift. Humans were no longer the species to be ignored. Their railgun had fired in combat, and it had worked flawlessly. It had demonstrated precision, power, and strategic effectiveness. More importantly, it had revealed something that no alien could replicate: the combination of human intelligence, determination, and resilience. For the first time, humans felt a quiet sense of triumph. Not arrogance, not pride and domination, but the satisfaction of knowing they had proven their species' worth. They had faced a greater force, survived, and demonstrated that they were capable of shaping their destiny. The galaxy had been forced to pay attention, and the old assumptions of weakness and insignificance had crumbled in. The galaxy had changed. Humans were no longer a distant, weak species to be ignored or underestimated. The railgun had fired, demonstrating not only power, but precision, strategy, and human determination. News of the humans' actions spread faster than any fleet could chase. Reports of their skill, ingenuity, and courage reached distant systems, forcing alien civilizations to reconsider everything they thought they knew. The old order of the galaxy was shifting, and humans were at the center of this transformation. On the station, humans worked tirelessly. They continued to test the railgun, refine defensive systems, and plan for the future. Every successful test reinforced confidence, while every challenge became a lesson. Humans understood that the railgun was not just a weapon, but a symbol of their place in the galaxy. It represented ingenuity, perseverance, and the ability to act when others underestimated them. Humans felt proud, not in arrogance, but in the knowledge that they had proven themselves capable of shaping their destiny. The alien civilizations began to react more decisively. Councils convened in urgency, fleets were repositioned, and strategies were reevaluated. Some rulers sought alliances, realizing that no single empire could challenge the humans alone. Others debated diplomacy, trying to find a way to engage humans without triggering further conflict. Fear and uncertainty had replaced the arrogance that had dominated for centuries. Humans had forced the galaxy to respect them, not by threats, but by demonstrating capability and intelligence. Despite the growing attention, humans remained focused. They strengthened their defenses, expanded observation systems, and improved coordination. Every human on the station understood that survival depended not only on technology, but also on discipline, strategy, and unity. They prepared for potential attacks while also planning for peaceful engagements, knowing that the railgun could be a tool for both protection and influence. Meanwhile, the humans realized that their actions had inspired their own species. Across Earth and human settlements on distant planets, people followed reports of the railgun and the station's success. Pride, hope, and determination spread. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries, yet one small group had proven that courage, ingenuity, and perseverance could overcome enormous obstacles. The story of the railgun became a symbol for all humans, a reminder that their potential was limitless when they worked together and never gave up. As the alien civilizations observed, humans on the station began to make contact cautiously. They sent messages that were neutral yet firm, demonstrating willingness to communicate, but also signaling strength. Humans had learned from the first confrontation. They could not allow themselves to be dismissed, threatened, or underestimated. Diplomacy and demonstration of capability became tools to shape the galaxy's perception of them. The railgun's power was a silent statement that humans were no longer weak, but the humans behind it were intelligent, strategic, and fair. The galaxy began to change in response. Aliens who had once ruled with certainty now hesitated, re-evaluated, and respected the humans' abilities. Fleets were redirected, aggressive plans were postponed, and alliances shifted. Humans had disrupted centuries of confidence. The old rulers had realized, sometimes too late, that humans could not be controlled or ignored. Their arrogance had been shattered, and the balance of power began to tilt toward those who had once been considered insignificant. Within the station, humans continued to innovate. They upgraded energy systems, refined the Railgun's firing mechanisms, and explored new technologies that could complement their weapon. Every improvement increased efficiency, reliability, and versatility. The humans' focus on continuous learning and adaptation became as important as the Railgun itself. They understood that progress was the key to survival, influence, and long-term success in the galaxy. The human success also inspired creativity and collaboration. Scientists, engineers, and strategists worked together seamlessly, sharing ideas, solving problems, and overcoming obstacles. Their unity and focus demonstrated that human strength was not just in technology, but in collaboration, intelligence, and adaptability. Every challenge they faced became an opportunity to learn, improve, and prepare for the unknown, the alien. Civilizations began to send emissaries for discussions, carefully observing humans while negotiating cautiously. The first meetings were tense, filled with curiosity, mistrust, and caution. Humans presented themselves with confidence and intelligence, demonstrating both the power of their Railgun and the discipline of their people. The message was clear. Humans were capable, prepared, and ready to take their place in the galaxy, but they were not seeking unnecessary conflict. Respect would be earned, not demanded. Humans realized that the galaxy was no longer just a place to survive. It was a space of opportunity. They began planning not for domination, but for recognition, collaboration, and influence. The Railgun had shown the galaxy what humans could do, but the humans themselves represented something more powerful: creativity, determination, and the ability to act decisively when others underestimated them. As time passed, humans continued to test the Railgun under increasingly complex scenarios. They measured range, energy efficiency, and tactical versatility. They simulated attacks from multiple directions, ensuring that the station and its technology could withstand coordinated efforts. Every test was a learning experience, strengthening not only the machine, but also the humans who operated it. Their focus, discipline, and strategic thinking became legendary, even among alien observers. The first generation of aliens who had underestimated humans began to lose confidence. Their fleets, once symbols of dominance, were reconsidered. Councils debated carefully before making decisions, aware that humans had proven their capability. Humans had changed the rules of engagement in the galaxy, and the arrogance that had dominated for centuries had been replaced with caution, respect, and careful calculation. Back on the station, humans also considered the ethical implications of their actions. They discussed strategy, diplomacy, and defense openly, ensuring that their decisions reflected not just power, but wisdom. They realized that influence came, not only from weapons, but also from intelligence, foresight, and fairness. The Railgun was a tool, but humans themselves were what shaped the future of their species. As the months went on, humans began to establish relationships with other civilizations. Some aliens approached with curiosity, others with respect, and a few with lingering distrust. Humans dealt with each situation carefully, demonstrating discipline, intelligence, and a willingness to cooperate. The Railgun remained ready, but it was no longer just a weapon of survival. It was a symbol of humanity's ability to influence, negotiate, and shape the galaxy's future. The influence of humans grew steadily. Their technology, strategy, and resilience inspired both fear and admiration. Alien civilizations began to recognize that humans could not be ignored or underestimated. The galaxy was no longer controlled solely by the old powers. A new era had begun, one in which humans were participants, innovators, and decision-makers. The railgun had fired, but it was only the beginning of humanity's rise. Humans reflected on how far they had come. They thought about Earth, their ancestors, and the generations that had built knowledge, technology, and courage. They realized that their success was not just in firing the railgun, but in proving that a determined species, working together, could achieve the impossible. The galaxy had learned that humans were clever, resilient, and capable of shaping their destiny. Alien civilizations, while still cautious, began to interact more openly. Some sought cooperation in science, exploration, and trade. Others proposed alliances or mutual defense pacts. Humans approached these interactions with intelligence, patience, and strategy. They had proven their power, but they also understood that long-term success required diplomacy, wisdom, and careful planning. Strength alone was not enough. Humans needed foresight and judgment. The humans' achievements became a source of pride and hope for all of humanity. Across planets and settlements, people celebrated the success of their species. The railgun had fired, a demonstration of ingenuity and resilience. But the humans behind it had shown the galaxy the true power of determination, intelligence, and unity. Humans were no longer underestimated. They had earned respect, recognition, and a place in the galaxy. Finally, the humans on the station took a moment to reflect. The railgun had changed everything. It had defended their people, demonstrated capability, and forced the galaxy to take notice. But more importantly, it had shown humans what they could achieve when they worked together, persevered through challenges, and believed in their potential. The railgun was a weapon, yes, but humanity itself had become unstoppable. The galaxy would never be the same. The rulers who had once laughed at humans were now cautious, respectful, and even wary. Humans had demonstrated that a small, determined, and intelligent species could change the balance of power. The railgun had fired. Alien fleets had been repelled, and humanity's place in the stars had been secured. The humans on the station looked at one another with quiet satisfaction. They had proven something extraordinary, not just the power of a weapon, but the resilience, ingenuity, and courage of their species. The galaxy had taken notice, and humanity had earned